All right, everyone, we're going to steep in some map details today, so I hope you're ready, because this presentation is going to be about some maps that I worked on for the Eugene Tea Festival for the past 3 years. So the Eugene Tea Festival is a nonprofit event that celebrates Asian-inspired tea makers, artists, and related vendors from across the Pacific Northwest. And I've had the pleasure of being the cartographer for this festival for its infancy to its best year this year. In 2023, this was a very small gathering of 24 vendors and 450 attendants, and it allowed people to come try various tea tastings and purchase teacups, pots, different art, and so much more. This year, the festival served over 2,500 people, and there were over 60 vendors. It was a little bit crazy and not expected, and I was really honored to be the one kind of helping on the back end with it. In addition to people just being able to come and taste teas, they got a free complimentary teacup with our logo on it, which was very cute. So for the 3 years, I've designed a vendor planning map and a visitor-facing map for the annual festival. And in this talk, I'm going to talk about the process. I use Illustrator and QGIS, as well as MAPublisher for the spatial plugin. And I developed these maps in close collaboration with a client who really valued clear communication and effective cartographic practices. I'll share how the maps evolved from each year to meet the different changing needs and how I improved the aesthetics and usability that supported both organizers and festival goers across web and print formats. But first, let's talk about the Farmers Market Pavilion in Eugene. This is a spectacular addition to the Park Blocks area in Eugene. It's a very nice sunlit area. If anyone is from Eugene and has been to the Saturday market, it is absolutely lovely. Where are my Eugene folks in the house? Yeah, nice cozy woos for the for the Farmers Market Pavilion. They also host the Tuesday night market, the indigenous art fairs, the Eugene Roller Village comes in there and we skateboard and roller skate, and so much more. It's really just a beautiful space. Now, sadly, the maps that are available for this space are maybe a little less than robust for planning purposes, or they're like too robust and have all of the details that you would never need or could read. Or there's this one, let's not talk about that. Or there are vendor booth planning maps that are specifically in Excel spreadsheets, which, you know, that's a choice. So for the vendor planning map, we wanted to create something that would show all of the electrical outlets within the building because some of the tea vendors needed to plug in their electric tea kettles to serve hot water for their tea tastings. We also needed to map all of the 10 by 10 feet grids inside the building, which was really helpful for planning, and along with all sorts of other obstacles that vendors might need to know about when setting up booths. It's definitely the most technical project that I worked on. For reference, I make reference maps for hiking trails. So this was very different, and I love making these maps because they're so contrary to the spaces that I'm usually mapping. So I started how most cartographers might go about doing this, and I opened up QGIS and put some satellite imagery, zoomed in to the Farmers Market Pavilion, and drew a really rough square around the pavilion and the building. I then took the shape into Illustrator using MAPublisher, and I overlaid that super busy, messy utility map and started picking out what I could imagine were all of the utility boxes and light poles and grid squares. And I created a grid to fit both the inside 10-foot by 10-foot grid area as well as the outdoor 5 by 5 feet grid square area. And I did that using the rectangular grid tool, which I think I didn't realize this until after I'd tried a whole bunch of other methods for making a grid that were super ineffective, and I wasted a little bit of time. And then I saw there was this hidden tool within the line, usually the line segment tool. There's all of these hidden tools in Illustrator where you have to press and hold, and then it gives you a ton of different options. And I thought this tool didn't exist, and sure enough, it does. It just gives you inches or document units. So sadly, I didn't take a screenshot of the units that I actually did. I think the scale of the map ended up being 220, scale of 1 to 220 feet. So I did some calculations and figured out what the inch conversion of my document to the map units, and I was able to make a pretty good, grid for the indoor and outdoor grids. For the first iteration of the planning map, I decided to keep some of the same symbology for the doors. I was pretty happy with this solid stroke and the dashed lines on the inside to represent doors swinging open and closed. And then I used symbols from the National Park Service Symbol Library, which is just what I use anyway for wilderness and hiking trail maps. So they seem to fit just fine for the aesthetic here. And as the festival grew each year, we decided that there were some things that really needed to be on the planning map that weren't on the original 2023 map, including all the trees that are in the outdoor space, the exit signs, some of the other outdoor wall outlets that are a higher voltage for food trucks to plug into. Also things like poles, there were some pots that were permanently stationed, as well as vendor loading areas that a car could drive up onto the curb and load all of their vendor supplies onto the space. Other things that I added to the map for this year were these red hatched lines to signify areas where the tent was supposed to be closed. So I worked closely with the organizer of the event, and she told me that we would want to close off some of the workshop tents to funnel people into those areas, so that way people didn't just come from all areas and they had to go into a registration area first. So there was a lot of forethought that I personally didn't really have a hand in deciding, but in communicating it, I was pretty much the expert in deciding what might be an easy and also colorblind safe way for someone to look at this and decide or be able to read. And it's mostly our staff of the festival needed to read it. So as long as the few people who knew what all the symbols were, they were gonna be able to understand what things we were trying to communicate. Directional signals for the booths, that was huge. Last year, we just had all of the booth numbers and lettered, and people kind of were facing in different directions, and so someone had to go around and specifically tell people which directions their booth should face. So we put little directional arrows, which I was able in MAPublisher to create a northwest, south, and east field, and then have these symbols auto-rotate based on the direction that we chose. So that'll make it a little bit easier for next year. We also added letters for the indoor booths and then numbers for the outdoor booths. Like I said, there were some pots, some bike racks, a water fountain. So all obstacles that we didn't really think would be important for planning the festival last year. But as cars tried to come up onto the curb and the outdoor area to start loading stuff up, they were gonna crash into things if they didn't know where not to go. And of course, as a outdoor, stay outside cartographer, I made sure to go to the pavilion and actually fact check some of this stuff, took plenty of pictures and tried to verify things like fire hydrants, all of the trees, the different grates that were on the ground. So in the end, the planning map looks very detailed, maybe a little bit more information than the beginning map that you saw of the Farmers Market Pavilion, but clearly communicates where vendor booths need to go, all of the loading points, and so much more. And this was a very iterative process that has evolved over the past 3 years. I don't think I've been a part of a project that has been so consistently updated for one festival. So this has been a really cool experience. So as you may have guessed, that previous map was not really for public consumption. There was a bit too much going on, and we wouldn't just stick this onto the festival goers and figure out where all of their favorite vendors were going to be. So we put the more viewer-friendly version of the map into an 8.5 by 11 brochure that would have a list of all of the vendors and some of their key information. This was the first year's version, so we went with kind of some beige and brown and greens to match the logo and some of the other colors that they had decided were going to be their brand colors. After the second year, we decided to go more minimalist. I always like just using black and white. It is a harder thing to do to go black, white, and gray because now you don't have color as another variable to distinguish your symbols and symbology. So while it was challenging, I really enjoyed it, and it matched the art that a really good friend of mine, Em, did for the back of the brochure. You could see this teapot pouring nice, hot, cozy chamomile tea into a little cup. And so I tried to resemble this aesthetic. I used a preset in Adobe Illustrator called charcoal pencil. So I just made all of the booths a bit rougher around the edge, all of the lines and other features, just kind of got like a rough, agitated charcoal effect, and I think it matched the aesthetic we were trying to go for. And of course, I had to make the north arrow and the scale bar kind of fit the same aesthetic there. The font was spectral, which offered a nice variety of different fonts to use, gave a lot of flexibility for the typeface across the map, and we used the same font at the very edge of the map to detail all of the different vendors. And this is my client and really good friend, Madeline Au. She wins Best Client of the Year consecutively since 2023 for me. So give it up for Madeline. She's an amazing client, and she knows exactly what she wants in a map. She really values clear communication. And in the end, we put it in this 8-page spread. And I had to split it up by a left side and a right side and make sure there was some space on the edge for a gutter. And of course, I had to have a nice little fade on the edges there. And then this is the final version that was put onto the website. In the future, we're going to try to make it more interactive, so booths can be clicked on and pop-ups will come up with all their favorite vendors and they can get more information. For the current website, it's just up there, and then there's a list of all the vendors with their links. For future considerations, like I said, some web functionality, but also we wanted to make sure that the flow is better for next year for all the booths. There was one dead zone that we couldn't really figure out why. When the 2,500 people were going through, there was just one area that just completely got missed. So there was a few vendors that were a little upset. So we're going to look back and see how we can fix that. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming along the journey with me. You can reach out to me if you have any questions. I think we have 30 seconds left, so if we have time, I can answer them now. Thank you.